I'm going to talk all about what to expect when you decide to go to your MSF course so that you can get your motorcycle endorsement. So let me start by explaining what MSF stands for. It stands for Motorcycle Safety Foundation. However, the MSF might not actually be in your state. There are a few states that actually use their own state-provided curriculum instead of using the nationally recognized motorcycle curriculum, the MSF. They use their own. So those states are going to be California, Idaho, Oregon, South Dakota, and Ohio. Everyone else, you're going to be using MSF. However, each state might have a different name. For example, here in New Mexico, we use the MSF program, but it is named the New Mexico Motorcycle Safety Program. All you have to do is go to the MSF website and plug in your zip code, and it will generate the closest MSF training near you. So what are you going to get? And what do you need to expect when you go into the MSF program? You're actually going to be doing an online course. Pretty much since COVID, the in-person, in-classroom part of the training doesn't exist anymore, and they've moved to an online training program instead. So MSF calls that the Basic E course, and it can take anyone from about 3 to 5 hours to complete. This course is designed to give you informational prep as well as preparing you for the written test that you're going to have to take in conjunction with the riding test. If you're not 100% sure if riding motorcycles is for you, you can purchase the Basic E-course by itself, and it's really inexpensive. And then once you've purchased it, you have access to it pretty much forever. However, the Basic E-course is not an acceptable form of earning your motorcycle endorsement, but it is a requirement to get your endorsement. But you have to do it with the hands-on portion of the training. The Basic E-course also covers 12 of the 16 topics that will be discussed during the Basic Rider course, which is the hands-on riding a motorcycle portion of your training. So here are the 16 topics. You'll have a course introduction. You'll go over all the different motorcycle types. You'll familiarize yourself with the controls, indicators, and equipment. You'll learn about the basic operation of the motorcycle. Your MSF ride coach will prepare you to ride. They'll discuss the risks of riding. They'll talk about basic street strategies, as well as discussing strategies for common riding situations. You'll also learn about how to manage basic emergency situations and about rider impairments. You'll also learn about state and local laws and key safety steps. You'll then start to wrap up the program with a knowledge test, which is of course where the E-course comes into play, getting you prepared for that. Then your MSF ride coach will discuss what your next steps are and what availability you have for training through the MSF. And then ultimately at the end, you are going to take your riding test. Okay, so let's dive into what does the hands-on portion or the Basic Rider course look like and things to be prepared for. So again, you are going to have to complete the online portion, so that Basic E-course, which is about 3 to 5 hours of self-paced learning. And you do have to have that complete before you come to the hands-on portion. So when you sign up for your Basic Rider course, which is also called BRC, make sure that you put some time aside in your week before you show up to get that e-learning done. Because if you don't, you're not actually going to be able to participate in the hands-on portion, which is the riding portion of the course. Now, the hands-on or the BRC portion of this course is going to be about 10 hours of learning, and that is spread over 2 days. So what your rider coach is going to do is pair you up with a motorcycle that fits your body type and your desired riding style best. Each state, each training location is going to have different motorcycles available to them, and there's a lot of different reasons for that. However, most of these motorcycles are going to be on the smaller physical size as well as the smaller engine size, because you're a brand new rider and you don't need to be on a big, huge motorcycle when you're trying to get through this. Besides, the way that the course is designed, It's actually easier to do on a smaller motorcycle. Even if you want to ride a big motorcycle eventually, doing it on a small motorcycle through that particular course should be easier for you. Some of the exercises that you'll start with are going to be riding in a straight line, stopping, shifting, turning, and gradually progressing to swerving and emergency braking. Now, I won't get into the details of what each of those exercises looks like, but the idea is to give you building blocks, starting you out really small and then working and progressing you up to eventually getting to the riding test. And in order to complete the course, you must successfully pass both the written exam as well as the riding test. Once you have completed both of those with a passing score, you'll be awarded a motorcycle endorsement waiver. What is really important to understand about this waiver is that your endorsement goes on to your current driver's license. It is not a separate license that you have to carry in your wallet. It actually goes on to your driver's license, but that can only happen if you go to the MVD, or some states call it DMV, but you have to go there and have that waiver turned into the permanent endorsement that goes on your license. Some of the exercises that you should be expecting, and I want to mention here that you do not need to be an expert in any of these things yet. This is designed for the brand new, I've never touched a motorcycle person. So I'm going to tell you this list, but I don't want you to panic and be like, I don't know how to do that. Of course you don't know how to do that. You've never been on a motorcycle. So don't panic, but here are the exercises that you will have to do and that you'll eventually get tested on at the end. So they're going to start you with what's called motorcycle familiarization. Your rider coach is going to go over what they call the T clocks, which is a pre-ride inspection. They're going to help you locate and identify the controls and how they are operated. And then they're going to teach you how to mount and dismount your motorcycle, as well as proper body positioning. Then your second exercise is going to be learning how to use the friction zone, which is the clutch. Then your third exercise is going to be starting and stopping drills, which is really about coordinating the friction zone, the throttle, and your brake. Your fourth skill is going to be all about shifting and stopping. So really just learning how to shift gears, because that's done with your foot. Your fifth exercise is really just going to be about refining the skills that you've learned up to that point. And then as you come up on the sixth exercise is going to be your first introduction to turning. The seventh exercise is about stopping more quickly and then also turning from a stop. The eighth exercise is actually just a demonstration. And your rider coach is going to show you the difference in stopping distance based on how fast you're moving. Then after the demo, you're going to be moving into your ninth exercise, which is all about limited space maneuvers. Again, you're really just refining all of the skills that you have learned up to that point. Your 10th exercise teaches you how to safely stop while you're in a curve. And the 11th exercise is about how to judge a curve. The 12th exercise is about how to link multiple curves together and how to do lane changes. The 13th exercise is about how to safely cross an obstacle or swerve to miss the obstacle. Your 14th exercise is really just there to help you practice and refine all the skills that you've learned over the last 2 days. And then finally, you are going to take your riding test and evaluation. So now before you even get to the range, you have to understand there are a couple prerequisites required in order to be successful or allowed to do the basic rider course through the MSF. So the MSF first requirement is that you are able to balance and ride a bicycle and that you possess either a valid driver's license or a motorcycle permit. And then the last piece is that some jurisdictions, so your local state or your county, might have other prerequisites that are required. You're going to want to prepare yourself before you go and make sure that you bring plenty of food and water. I can't express how important it is to stay hydrated. So pick an electrolyte that you really love as well, because if it's a hot day, and it will be hot out on the asphalt, make sure that you're drinking plenty of water. And I'm going to tell you, one little bottle of water is not enough. You're going to definitely want more than that. It's also not a bad idea to bring a pen and pencil and maybe a notepad if you're the kind of person who enjoys taking notes. And you are going to have to bring your own riding gear. However, the MSF does offer not only the motorcycle for you to ride, but they do also provide helmets, and I believe they also provide gloves. However, here are the things that you have to provide. Now, if you want to bring your own helmet, you absolutely can, but it has to be a properly fitted DOT compliant helmet. You will have to have eye protection. You'll have to wear a long sleeve shirt or jacket, and you're going to have to wear long, non-flare pants made of denim or something of equivalent material. So like leggings is not acceptable. They're also going to want to have you in over the ankle boots. And also these can't be like canvas, like high top Converse. You really do need to have a sturdy style boot that covers your ankle and is closed toed. And then lastly, you're going to need full finger gloves. And it is preferred that they are leather. And once again, these are all the MSF's prerequisites and requirements in order for you to participate in their basic rider course. Now, this is a group situation, meaning you will have other people in the course with you. And so when you're going through those exercises, you'll go through and then you'll wait, and you'll wait for everyone else to go through, and then you'll go through again, and then you'll wait and you'll wait for everyone else to go through. So there is a little bit of time for you to sit and observe and absorb, which also means that if it's a hot day, you're sitting out in the sun. So dress appropriately. Again, you have to have long sleeves on. You have to have those long non-flare pants and boots on, as well as those gloves and a helmet. So what happens if you do not pass the course? And this happens, and some of the reasons for it is maybe you don't pass the written portion. Typically, it's because you don't pass the riding portion. And what happens there a lot of the times is that it's that test anxiety, is that you've been riding fine out on the range, but now that someone's sitting there with a clipboard and they're marking down how well or not well you're doing, can really fumble some people. Now, I did talk about the MSF specifically, and I had mentioned earlier that there are a couple of states that don't have the MSF curriculum. However, just know that their state curriculum is going to be really similar because it's designed for the brand new, never been on a motorcycle rider. Because none of these curriculums are teaching anything special or new. We all have to start from the same place. And so if you happen to be a California resident, for example, your motorcycle endorsement course is going to have a very similar curriculum. It'll very likely have a similar list regarding gear requirements as well as prerequisites. So I hope that clears up some of the questions that you have about what am I getting into if I'm going to do this MSF course. It can be really daunting because it's the first real step that you have to take in order to become a motorcyclist. You have to get that endorsement. So if you're here, congratulations and welcome to motorcycling. These are the steps that you need to take in order to become a motorcyclist.